Hello, everyone, and welcome back to your Readings and Philippine History subject. This is still your professor, Mr. Krippe Anthony A. Ramos, and for this session, we will be talking about the modes of historical criticism. So here are our learning objectives. So after this session, everybody must be able to compare and contrast the two modes of historical criticism. Second, you must be able to scrutinize the authenticity and credibility of a historical source. And third, you must be able to develop a critical analysis regarding the reasons of forged or misleading historical sources. Okay, so let's start our discussion by looking into the different modes or the two modes of historical criticism. So una dyan, syempre, ay tatawag natin na external criticism. So whenever we're talking about the external criticism, this is the practice of verifying the authenticity of an evidence by examining its physical characteristics at the time when it was produced and the materials used for the evidence. So, simply put, if we're talking about external criticism, kaya siya tinatawag na external criticism, it's simply because it goes beyond the content no, ng pinag-uusapan natin na document or na isang note kung sakali man na ito ay written history. So, whenever we're talking about external criticism, it goes beyond the content. So, anything which regards to the characteristics halimbawa ng ng papeles, no, yung characteristic or material halimbawa sa paggawa nito kagaya ng quality of paper, no, yung ginamit na ink, yung lengguwahe at mga salitang ginamit, they are part of what we call as the external criticism. So since it goes beyond no yung tinatawag natin na content, it is considered as a lower is it's considered as the lower criticism no between the two. So, ano ba yung isa pa? And that is the internal criticism. If we're talking about internal criticism, this is the examination of the truthfulness naman of the evidence. Kung kanina, we are talking about the authenticity of the evidence, internal criticism will talk about the truthfulness of the evidence na pinag-uusapan. So ano pong ginagawa ng internal criticism? It looks at the content of the source and examines the circumstance of its production. It is also considered as the higher criticism kasi nga ang tinitira nito no ang tinitingnan nito is definitely yung content ng source or ng document na pinag-uusapan. So ano daw po yung ilang example dito? That will be yung author of the source, the context, the agenda, bakit ba ito kinreate, and the knowledge which informed it and its intended purpose. Okay? So let's go ahead and talk about this in a little deeper way. No? So pag sinabi mong external, balikan lang natin, this is the test of authenticity. So under the test of authenticity, so ito po yung mga kasama dyan, yung tinatawag na anachronistic. When you say anachronistic, it means a document or file belonging to a specific period. So say for example, no, nung panahon nga ng 15th century, printing is unknown and computers are not yet existing and the like. So kapag sinabi mo limbawa na merong printing ng panahon ng 15th century, most likely, no, hindi authentic ito. No? Dahil nga pinag-usapan natin dito ay yung mismong specific period na kung saan no, wala pa raw computer, wala pa raw kung printing. Okay? Under this, we have what we call as the isographies. So when you say isographies, these are your dictionaries of biography that gives examples of handwriting, yung mga sinaunang no, yung mga sinaunang handwriting and up until this moment na mga panunulat na ginagamit daw po natin. On the other hand, if we are talking about paleography, this is the study of the ancient and medieval handwriting, no? Mapa Sanskrit man 'yan, mapa ano man 'yan, ano, mapa alibata man yan, kung ano man yung mga sinulat nung panahon ng ancient at saka ng medieval period, that will fall under the paleography. Diplomatics, on the other hand, has been derived from the Greek word diploma, which means doubled or folded. So its main task is to distinguish genuine from false documents. Kaya kung mapapansin din ninyo, no, if we are talking about getting a degree, napakahalaga na makapag-present tayo ng diploma so that we will be able no, na mapatunayan na indeed kami ay gumraduate na-accomplish namin lahat-lahat yung mga academic requirements in order for you to say na talagang graduate ka from that degree. Kaya nga nabuo yung term na diploma. Okay, that's anachronistic. If we're talking about the anachronistic document date, it determines the date of the document to see what era or generation it exists. Panahon ba ito halimbawa ng Gen Z? Panahon ba ito ng millennial? Panahon ba ito ng baby boomers? Or panahon na ito ng Gen Alpha? that will fall under the document date. Author, on the other hand, no, it determines the author's handwriting, which includes the signature and seals, na lalong-lalo na ng mga sinaunang panahon, ano, ang kanilang mga panunulat ay sineselyuhan nila at pinipirmahan po nila. Pati naman, no, meron pa ring pirma, pero yung selyo ng mga sinaunang panahon, ginagamit siya the moment na i-deliver halimbawa yung mga sulat, so that they will be able to determine na authentic talaga itong document na ito. Okay? Anachronistic style, on the other hand, will actually be either idiom, orthography, or punctuation, no? So if we're talking about the anachronistic style, tinitignan natin yung ano, no, yung kapamaraanan ng taong nagsulat. Halimbawa, kung pag-uusapan natin ang term na katwiran no panahon ng ano no ng early 20th century, ito daw po ang kanyang spelling, that's Catuiran. Pero kung babalikan mo na ngayon, no, yung ating spelling sa salitang katwiran, nagsisimula yan sa letter K at may W pa nga, hindi ba? So makikita natin dyan that the anachronistic style will also matter in determining yung tinatawag natin na authenticity ng document. Kahit nga halimbawa, yung panahon di ba ng mga Jejemon, kung maalala ninyo, na ginagamitan nila ng mga ano no, ng mga styles na dinadagdagan nila ng letter J, dinadagdagan nila ng letter Z, dinadagdagan nila ng letter X, no, para lang mapahaba yung word, that can fall under the anachronistic style. 'Di ba? Kahit nga nung panahon na meron tayong kinaka-chat sa Messenger man ito o sa text, no, may mga panahon na mararamdaman niyo na parang hindi siya yung kausap ko. Bakit? Ang pamantayan natin dito ay tinitingnan natin yung style ng kanyang pagte-text or pag-chat, hindi ba? So tinitingnan natin doon na parang yung kanyang style, yung kanyang ano no, yung kanyang what do you call this, yung kanyang capitalization ay iba sa ina-expect natin, yan, nag-fall siya na under an anachronistic style. Anachronistic event reference naman, it determines whether the event mentioned ay mas maaga or too late, no? If we're talking about that document per se. So, example of which will be the family's archives or among the business firms or lawyers' paper. Okay? So that's test of authenticity. Let's have a review. Whenever we're talking about test of authenticity, it talks about external criticism. Okay? On the other hand, if we're talking about internal criticism, this will now be the test of credibility. Mapagkakatiwalaan ba itong dokumento na to? Oo o hindi. That will be answered, syempre, no, once it undergo yung natawag natin na internal criticism. So under test of credibility, we have what we call as the author's identification. Tinitignan natin dito yung reliability ng taong nagsulat, yung kanyang ginawang proseso, kung paano niya naisip ito, bias ba siya, objective ba siya kapag nung panahon na sinulat niya ito, o baka mamaya kasi meron siyang dinaramdam nung time na yon, kaya niya naisulat yung mga bagay-bagay. So that's the first thing no, na i-check natin in terms of test of credibility, the author's identification. Second, we have the date approximation. It determines the event's date that must be closest to the truth of the actual date na pinag-uusapan. Halimbawa, kung panahon ng pandemya yan, most likely ito ay nasa panahon ng 2020 up until 2022 to 2021. Ayan. So that's the date approximation. Ability to tell the truth also, it's an integral part in which masasabi natin mapagkakatiwalaan yung tao or yung dokumento pinag-uusapan. Number one dyan, the ability to tell the truth rests in part upon the witness's nearness to the event. Of course, paano masasabi ang katotohanan kung hindi naman ikaw saksi doon sa event na yun or hindi mismo ikaw malapit doon sa event na yun, maaaring narinig mo lang siya kung kani-kanino. Second, all witness, even if equally close to the event, is not equally competent as witnesses. Competence depends upon the degree of expertness or state of mental and physical health. So take note ha, maaring lahat halimbawa sa isang pagkakataon or pagtitipon, maraming tao. Tapos merong biglang naganap, sinasabi diyan na while it is true na yung taong nakita yung kaganapan can be a witness, hindi silang lahat ay kasing competent ng isa't isa. Bakit daw po? Because competence daw po ng pagiging witness will always depend na sa degree of expertness or yung state or of mental and physical health. Kasi baka mamaya, nung time na yun, hindi siya okay, not feeling well, no, not feeling good. So nung time na yun, instead na ang focus niya ay sa pangyayari, ang focus niya ay nasa sarili niya. So most likely, yun ay hindi sila magiging pareho ng kanila pong pagiging competent. Kaya kayo ikatlo dyan, it's important also to remember that the degree of attention is also an important factor in the ability to tell the truth. Kasi paano mo siya masasabi kung hindi ka naman nakafocus doon sa ating kaganapan or sa event na pinag-uusapan natin. So again, degree of attention is an important factor in telling the truth. And of course, we have the investigator barely miss reasoning in a circle, no, that from premise back to premise again, ang paulit-ulit lang kaya nga siya naging pa-circle, no? So ayan, test of credibility. Another will actually be yung willingness to tell the truth. So it determines if the author consciously and unconsciously tells falsehood. Willing ba siya sabihin talaga ang totoo or gawa-gawa niya lang ito? So the moment that we will be able to answer that, that will be your willingness to tell the truth. It has been also said that being credible means embodying the Latin maxim falsus in uno, falsus in omnibus, which means false in one thing, false in everything. Ibig sabihin po niyan, if we are talking about being truthful, no? It's important for us na alalahanin na kailangan lahat ng sasabihin natin hindi tayo magmimintis. Kasi the moment daw po na merong kahit isa na magmimintis doon sa pinag-uusapan natin at mapatunayang hindi totoo, everything will also follow. Ano po ibig sabihin niyan? Pag meron ka ng, 'di ba, kung mapapansin niyo, no, kahit sa pagkakaibigan, hindi ba? Pag meron na siyang isang bagay na nagawa na or nasabi na hindi tama, at nakapagsinungaling siya laban sa iyo, most likely hindi mo na ito pagkakatiwalaan. Ganon din whenever we're testing the credibility. The moment na magsinungaling in just one thing, of course, everything will already be affected. That's falsus in uno, falsus in omnibus. Okay? And we also have what we call as the corroboration, in which it determines if the information received supports, confirms a theory or findings, particulars that rest upon the independent testimony of two or more reliable witnesses. Again, no, na pagtatagpi-tagpi daw nila yung mga bagay-bagay at related sila sa kanila pong mga sinasabi. That is corroboration. At it will depend on the independent testimony of two or more reliable witnesses. That is your test of credibility or the internal criticism. Now, kung gano'n ang pinag-usapan natin, no, syempre mahalaga rin na mapag-usapan natin yung mga kadahilanan bakit nga ba mayroong mga tao na gumagawa or nagmi-mislead ng historical documents. So according to Gottschalk noong 1969, una, sometimes they are being used to bolster a false claim or title. So this indicates that historical documents are sometimes a product of strong held belief but not verified or examined. Gusto na nilang pangatawanan. Kaya nga nila ito sinasabi para nandiyan eh. No, kailangan natin pangatawanan, kailangan na lang nating ituloy-tuloy. So they are being used so that they will be able to bolster yung false claim or title na pinag-uusapan. Second, documents are counterfeited for sale. So historical sources become misleading if the avenue where it is exhibited is for the purpose of profit. Documents, for an instance, that address public concerns should be known and used by the public. Thus, this data should not be served for private purposes. Kasi ang karaniwan nangyayari, no, instead na ilabas ito for public use, no, binibili ito at ipinagbebenta itong mga documents na ito. Kaya nagagamit siya sa hindi tama, no? At some point na babali pa at na naiikot yung mga sinasabi ng mga dokumento. So again, second reason is that it is being counterfeited for sale. Third, fabrication is due to less mercenary considerations like political propaganda. So truth in history cannot be ascertained if it was intervened by a politician for his or her propaganda. This concept is called fabrication. So meron pong instance dyan na sinabi that an influential individual manipulates the news beneficial to his end. This hinders the truth, thus cannot be proven as valid. So ito na naman, no, tuwing election, mapapansin ninyo, ang daming mga political propaganda, pinagmumukhang mabuti ang masama, pinagmumukhang masama ang mabuti, yung mga tao, ginagawa nila kung ano-ano, no, pinaproject nila kung sino-sino sila. So people, if we are talking about fabrication, it is important, no, na ang ating usapin dito ay hindi nababahiran ng ng mga politician. Kasi the moment halimbawa na ginamit ito or nag-intervene ang politician, no, most likely magkakaroon tayo ng problema diyan kasi ang kanyang nais ay maging ano no beneficial sa kanyang kapakanan yung mga bagay-bagay. Okay? So that is again the third reason fabrication is due to less mercenary considerations like political propaganda. Okay? Four, some historical facts are based only on some practical jokes. So practical jokes are exhibited to trick others or amuse them with a certain information delivered. This action can interfere the authenticity of information because the reason why it was shared is for entertainment or amusement. Ito ang problema natin, lalo sa mga Pilipino, no? Joke lang siya nagsimula. Yung mga usapin, halimbawa, no, na dati-rati ganito, nangyari ito, dating sementeryo ito, dating ganito ito, and so on and so forth. Pero dahil sa paulit-ulit siya no, na nagiging kwento, it seems no, na nagiging historical fact siya para sa ilan. Pero hindi natin sinasabi na totoong historical fact ha. Pero take note na nanggagaling daw ito sa some practical jokes na kung tutuusin, hindi dapat kapanipaniwala because it will interfere yung authenticity ng information po natin. Because again, kaya naman ginagawa ang joke simply because we would want to entertain and we would want to amuse yung mga tao na kinakausap natin at hindi naman sabihin na ito yung totoo. Siyempre, no? So sobrang dapat nating iwasan yung pag-share ng mga practical joke whenever we're talking about historical facts kasi dapat hindi po ganun. And lastly, genuine documents are intended to mislead certain contemporaries, hence mislead subsequent historians. So this connotes the idea of examining the data first before jumping into conclusions. Kailangan pasado ito sa dalawang criticism, and that is yung internal criticism and external criticism so that we will be able to determine that that document or that information is indeed authentic and indeed reliable and credible. And that's it for our discussion about the modes of historical criticism. So if you have questions or clarifications, feel free to comment it sa ating ano no sa ating pong box diyan sa baba. Okay? So let me also grab this opportunity to thank everyone for attending our session about your readings in Philippine history subject. Again, this is your professor, Mr. Krippe Anthony A. Ramos, and I'm hoping to see you all on the succeeding sessions that we have for this subject. Thank you.